Great work, Gary.
Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. We are good to go.
We're back.
Yes.
With Drunk Janitors.
We're back.
I am Bertoni. This is Troylet.
Troylet, yes.
And, yeah, we're here.
I have a potty mouth. That's why they call me Troylet.
All right, well, would you like to introduce the beer? Chris isn't here to introduce it in German.
No, he's not, and I'm not going to be able to do it's Marsbrau, the one we talked about last week, a Keller beer. Surprised by the color on this.
Yeah, surprisingly dark.
Yeah, I thought that'd be much lighter. But still a good looking beer.
Yeah, Keller beer. Unfiltered.
Maybe it's like decoction I'm smelling. I was getting something off of it earlier.
Yeah, exactly. I pick up acetaldehyde.
That's what I.
A little. We were talking about off flavors last week. That generally would be regarded as another off flavor. Kind of has like a pungent green apple, Jolly Rancher kind of thing going on.
And I feel like I'm more sensitive to that. Like that jumps out at me more. I think than diacetyl and acetaldehyde definitely jump out.
There's definitely a little diacetyl in this beer this week as well. I think not as much as last week, but
No.
We were talking about diacetyl a lot last week, and one of the ways that a lot of people perceive that is actually in the mouthfeel, right?
Yeah, the viscosity. We didn't talk about that much last week. That's one of the things that we did not touch on. It's more a mouthfeel, viscosity thing.
Yeah,
slickness on your tongue.
Yeah, maybe even described as like oily, slickness, viscous.
Yes.
I'm getting that in this beer. Still drinkable.
Yeah, no, it's all right. We're going to start doing malt liquor reviews. We want to know what you guys think.
Yeah.
What 40s do you want to see us drink?
Or, anything else out there. Cheladas.
Cheladas, actually. We've been
Locos.
on the Chelada quest. I wasn't a big fan of the Soul Chelada.
We're gonna take reviews for,
Request.
requests for reviews. Yes.
I like it.
So
this
is gonna be
one.
part of the segment too. Look, we're doing what you boys drinking, and then we're doing this. Yeah, this will be every week.
yeah.
In case people cannot see the label, can you let them know what you're drinking?
Ninja.
Ninja.
It's pronounced Ninja.
Ninja School.
Ninja School. Oh, Ninja
Karate
School.
style lager.
Ninja School.
Yeah, ridiculous.
If anyone's wondering, this beer was purchased locally. It was, at a venue that's, not far from here. It's not close.
Not far either.
Probably walkable.
Well, it depends. Like you could walk to Pennsylvania, bro.
Yeah, you
If
could do
wanted
that.
to. It would take you a
Okay.
while, but you could do that.
But if someone can't find this Keller beer in their local liquor store, they can probably request it from the staff. It's not a guarantee, but that's a way to try
Yeah,
and get
I would
it.
also-
Yeah.
If they're regular watchers, they might know where we purchased it. But, yeah, it was purchased locally.
That's a great way to do it, though. Go in, they don't have it, ask your guys to get
Yeah,
it,
sure.
see if they can. And if not, buy a Ninja.
Yeah.
But
There you
that's
go.
what I would
If they got
recommend.
Ninja.
Like if they have Ninja on, just get a Ninja.
You can't go wrong with that, right?
Yeah,
Ninja's
we're gonna-
pretty solid.
You can find it at your local establishment.
I myself prefer a Ninja to this.
Fantastic.
Shout out to all of our very loyal accounts. Every single one of them.
All right, so we're going to jump into some questions. Last week we had one that was left off that Brendan, you thought would be a good segue into this week. And Amanda wanted to know, is it possible to do something like a Belgian-style beer, or does that have to do with the hops or ingredients that you can only get there?
So, most Belgian styles are going to be heavily yeast driven. So we would use, in a couple of years we did a Belgian pale ale that we canned, and that was a different yeast strain that we used. Traditionally, yeah, you would use Belgian ingredients, that sort of thing. But it's a very, generally speaking,
Very yeast driven.
Yeast-driven, phenolic,
Yes.
across the board.
I had a real rough ride on Chimay one time where I overindulged. And for me, those beers are hard to get into now because every time I have any Belgian beer, the phenolic yeast character that comes through on that just overwhelms me. And I remember the bad ride I had in Chimay, and I want to go lay in the parking lot and bomb.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a wide range of Belgian style beers that.
Well, like Belgian Trappist, just regular Belgian, like.
Yeah, the monk brewed beers are going to be probably a lot different than any of the like non-monk brewed beers. Yeah.
James made a comment saying the Chimay, am I saying that wrong?
Chimay.
Is a lot to handle.
It is. Actually, it's James that I'm thinking about. What's up, Dollar? He sent me a beer from the brewery from Chimay, because they have the red, the blue, right? And
Yes,
then,
there are.
And then they have it was man, I'm brain fried right now, but it's a special one they do like once a year. It's not like a Patterson beer or anything. It's a stronger beer. It's more like a triple,
Like a Grand Cru or something.
like a Grand Cru. But
Yeah.
this, I can see the bottle in my head right now, but the name is not coming to me. That beer is very different from their normal, their standard flagships that those guys are putting out. So that beer is more approachable. I'm trying to think of the name. Surette, is that right?
Yeah.
Does that sound right? Could be totally wrong. Someone out there's got to know that.
They got access
I
to the
say we
internet.
go with it.
We can, yeah,
I think it's
confidence.
Surette or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he made a comment saying those monks don't play.
They don't. They live a hardcore lifestyle. They will not be on drunk janitors. They do get their beer allowance though. So back in the day when you see the Fat Friar, what I read was those guys had a 7 liter a day beer allowance. And this is when they would be fasting or whatever. So like, they fast through certain parts of the year, but they still got their 7 liters a day. And we all know what a liter is. So imagine having 7 liters of really high calorie monk beer. You're going to drink 7 of those things. You're going to get your calorie intake.
Well, and it might not be like the full on like the quads or anything, right?
No, that's true.
They are brewing the
These are
table
beers, yeah.
for themselves, and
Yeah, these are beers that are, the table beer they would call it.
So a lot of times the monks would brew, well, still do to this day, brew these high gravity beers that are super high in alcohol, and then so they'll take the last runnings, everything in the low gravity wort at this point, and make a table beer, and that's what they drink for themselves.
Well, they have the Patter's beer,
Yeah,
like the father,
absolutely.
and that's like the bigger one, the head dude in charge, the HNIC gets. And then the second runnings, the Party Guile style brewing
Right.
that they would do.
Yep.
To make that smaller beer. So they're taking all the grain we got, and they run this high gravity beer out of it, and there's enough sugar left in that grain to make a really low alcohol, low gravity beer.
And we're
Rinse all that
we're
grain.
talking like sub 3% beer
Yeah.
at this point, maybe
Dang.
even lower. So it's a table beer,
It's a table beer.
kind of like Ninja.
Yeah.
That's why it's on the table.
Yeah.
Sure is.
All right, so Kathy had also asked last week, how do y'all come up with a new recipe every week?
Well, we don't necessarily come up with a new one every week.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's not, in your experience, you probably have had to do that before. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. To keep up with.
In a pub setting, it's
Yeah, when
something
you're
you
pub
do.
brewing, especially in a big brew pub, yeah. I don't know. I always use what's popular to influence it. More like we always talked about what you want.
Well, yeah. I think it goes along with what we talked about last week, that a lot of it's driven by what the market wants. Sometimes raw material inventory or what's available out there, a lot of people probably don't realize that
Yeah.
some of our raw materials, hops specifically, are in huge demand, and so it's kind of hard to get. So you kind of have to be able to play with what you have.
Know what subs you can make on your hops, see what you
Right.
have in the pantry, and then also do a little bit of research as far as what you're going for.
Well, and you can always look back and say, I really like what this
Yeah.
ingredient did in this beer, and I like what this ingredient did in this beer, and so we can combine those two things. And,
And what's crazy is when you do that, sometimes it works, but sometimes they clash.
It's totally
like,
different.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I didn't think it was going to do that.
So on the note of, you made a comment saying sometimes you have to make do with what you have. Have y'all ever created, either of you, like an unconventional beer with maybe some ingredients you wouldn't have reached for originally, but you just kind of make do, where you just wanted to see what would turn out?
So I would say no, because I'm not going to go buy weird things that I don't know how they
Maybe
interact
not
with the
weird
beer.
so much as like
Unconventional weird.
There was one beer we made here. We just needed to fill a tank and do something, and we made a hoppy beer with hops that we wouldn't traditionally use or think of.
Even now we have lager yeast laying around, so we went into the pantry, so we have the post.
Well, and I'm not talking about that beer specifically,
Yeah,
but we have done that in the past, and it was really well received because we used, I
kitchen
think
sink
it's
style.
three hops that traditionally you would never put into an IPA.
Mm-hmm.
That beer became what we called Nedlish for
That one was good.
for our homeboy Ned.
Shout out to him and Kathy. Miss them.
And that beer turned out awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes it works.
We used to do like an inventory clearing beer. Basically, at the end of the year, you'd have all
Yeah.
these leftover partial bags of whatever malt, whatever hops, whatever weird, flowers or spices
everything.
or whatever that you got left over, and we'd kind of come up with a clear the pantry kind of beer. And then
Spring
we've
clean.
done, yeah,
Spring clean.
spring cleaning beer. And those always come out surprisingly well for how they're designed.
The majority of the time, yeah.
James is asking, didn't you import some ingredients from the Philippines?
Yeah, we got, not here we haven't, but the calamansi.
Yeah.
Did a calamansi saison. So calamansi is like Filipino sweet lime.
Ooh, that
And
sounds
if
good.
anyone's ever had it, like it's almost like lemonade.
Mhm.
These little tiny limes, that look almost like a key lime. But the flavor is way different, much sweeter. And shout out to Mike Holligan. He recreated that recipe at Outworld. And with permission, because Mike's dope like that. I was like, hey man, can I do the calamansi, saison again? And he did do his own twist on it. But that was one of
Tasted really good.
one of the ideas that I had back in the day, because as a American dude, I didn't know what calamansi was or never tasted that or anything. And now it's much more available. So you can actually source calamansi. We had a hard time getting that the first time we did the beer. I actually had to go to the Asian market and buy the frozen concentrate little tubes. And I bought every one that they had, and that's how we did it. And then after that, we were able to source it. So there's other things from the Philippines that I'd like to get a hold of, to put in the beer.
Kind of like.
I mean, there's people that are,
I was gonna make an inappropriate joke.
there are people doing that really successfully with a lot of, like I would say, ingredients and flavors that the Western palate probably isn't accustomed to. Specifically the brewing in Vietnam we were talking about recently, that's doing exactly that, using local Vietnamese ingredients, and they're crushing it.
These guys have blown up this brewery in Vietnam.
Yeah,
What's the name of those guys?
Pasteur Street,
Pasteur Street in Vietnam. I think they have 3 locations now.
something like that, across Vietnam.
Yeah. Selling beer for American prices too in Vietnam. The cost of living is much different there. For anybody that's been over there knows this. You can live on like $1 a week.
They're doing really well, and like from everything I've gathered, I can't say I've personally had the beer, but using ingredients that you wouldn't traditionally use.
Source and local. Totally.
I think a couple of
It's
our
pretty cool.
regulars actually went there when they visited and
They did.
Which
threw
number?
on a red leg sticker and on their
Yep.
like they have a sticker door similar to ours.
I think that might have been where the Corona thing started, but I don't want to go there.
Don't
Rich
put
and
that
Lori
evil
coming
on
back. Hi, Rich and Lori.
All right, so I'll just go on. I got a couple people shouting y'all out. Steven said nice shades, and he loves you guys. Hope you're hanging in there. Billy said,
Sup,
sup,
Steven?"
Tito.
Sup, dog?
And here's one. David wants to know, when will you make a beer like Keystone Light? Asking for a friend.
Well, David,
We have not done a Ninja Light yet.
Yeah.
But
Ninja Light 2021.
I would take some of the calories out of this and call that Ninja Light. And we've already done it, guys. Ninja.
Ninja.
Right here.
Well, there you go, David. All right.
That's a Seltzer question next.
So this one's not brewing related, but Ben asked on Facebook, if you had superpowers, what would they be and why?
I'll let you take that one first.
Well, David at Comrade, that's where Superpower IPA came from.
Yeah.
Was they asked him what his superpower was, and he was like, I make IPAs. And that's just so I can't steal his answer.
That's a good answer.
That would be cool.
My superpower would be like being like 1 IQ point higher.
Just one.
Increase it by 1
IQ
point.
point higher than I need to not be here. If that makes any sense. No, I don't know. As far as a superpower, it'd be like, I don't know. I don't have any of those.
That's why it's wishful thinking.
Give me a good answer,
Yeah.
dude. Like,
I'm totally blank. I don't have
That's what
one.
I'm like.
I just-
I think it'd be pretty dope to be able to drink as much beer as possible and not gain weight.
I was gonna say, like, when you look like this, when we take our
Well,
shirts
this
off,
is-
we're just like shred. Like, we look like this, but then we take our shirts off, and people are like, "Damn, are you guys bodybuilders?" And like,
Yeah.
You
Well,
say yes.
yeah, I'd probably consider
a
that
lot
a
of people don't know.
superpower.
I mean, this is what Body by Ninja looks like.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey. So, one person has asked, Eric wants to know, can we expect a limited COVID-19 release beer?
Well, we have to quarantine the beer, do different things with it, like keep it away from everybody for weeks at a time.
Yep.
It's gonna be a hard beer to make. And then
Well,
the
the
rules are
hard-
always changing on the
I
beers.
was gonna say, the hard part's gonna be like actually consuming the beer while you're 6 feet away from it. So
we could
we're
come
gonna
up
have to
with a
figure
straw or
out like some
something.
sort of straw.
Yeah.
That you sanitize and yeah.
If it falls through the air and has contact with the air, yeah, we got to think about a lot of things, man. Like, what can we pump through
It's
the
gonna
air?
logistically be really challenging, but I think if anybody can do it,
Well, and it comes with a free mask per 6-pack or something. Like, we're going to give you an N95 mask that comes with that 6-pack.
It's got to have some sort of one-way valve too for the straw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
breathe out, but yeah.
Makes sense to me. Excuse me. I coughed in the
Yeah.
direction. You're going to die.
All right. Well, so it sounds like maybe y'all will think about it.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
Start brainstorming some things.
Yeah,
So,
Circle wagons.
circle the wagon. There you go. All right. So, what are y'all currently reaching for in your own fridges? Whoops.
In our own what?
Fridge.
Like food.
Yeah.
Beer wise.
Fridge.
Sorry,
Oh,
I
beer-wise.
I should have clarified.
I'm like cheese.
What beers are you currently reaching for in your fridge?
Luckily, I have a good supply of Ninya.
Yeah.
Fridge. So.
What beers? Usually I
I
have.
actually have Miller Lights. I bought some Miller Lights the other day.
Can we pause and give a shout out to Jason?
Jason,
Great.
we'll do a food truck shout out.
Pizarte?
Yeah,
Yeah, we got a food truck here
Yeah, we got a
today.
food truck here today, every day.
What's up, guys?
Jason from the food truck. Do your thing, dude. What you got?
Yeah.
What do I got? I got pizza.
Yeah.
Come get some pizza,
Got
guys.
pizza.
Got pizza panzerato. Come on down. It's to go. It's hot. It's wood fired. It's delicious.
And you're here till 7
Got it
p.m.,
all.
correct?
Maybe.
Maybe.
No.
Okay.
Ish, if you guys
Of
show
course,
up.
I'll be here till 7.
Okay.
Yeah, come on down.
This pizza's
Ladies and
fantastic.
gentlemen. I like the shades, guys.
Yeah, man, like the chain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is real.
That's real. That's what I call pimping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big pimpin'. BLEDs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're okay. So, if, did you state what you were reaching for, Brendan?
Actually, yesterday you reached for several.
Yeah, I had one. or
Mondays
two.
is Brendan's day off.
Yeah, and you're barbecuing. You do things. I had PBRs yesterday. They were great.
I have Miller Lite lattes. So we actually did a little Miller lattes, Miller
Yeah.
Lights. PBR and Miller Lite, right, are our two favorites. We agreed.
with mass produced.
Yeah, the mass produced stuff. If you go actually drink them blind, they're not bad.
All right.
I always tend to have Odell IPA in the fridge too. I mean, it's just
Can
a
never go
standby
wrong.
for.
Get just
Whiskey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brandon drinks that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So,
He had Santani's always.
and Santani's,
Yeah.
which, if you remember,
It's
are
my
hard
lifeblood.
seltzers.
Yeah, just solid.
Margentinas, Santanis.
Jesus.
Yeah.
You had that Enero tequila from Costco.
Yep. I still have.
Whatever the place. And then,
Yeah, I had an añejo tequila from a venue. Yeah.
Okay, so this is probably a comment or a question that's pretty debatable, or maybe it used to be. But the question is, does craft beer in cans really taste as good as in bottles?
I think it depends on how you're packaging the stuff, the beer.
So, well, this
Your
is
packaging
actually
procedures have something to do with it.
This is actually a topic that was brought up in a packaging course that I did at one point.
I would say it's perceived, but
well, back in the day, the liner technology in the cans was very different than it is today. So I would say 40 years ago, probably, like
the canned beer was shit.
You could taste it.
You get a Billy beer and it'd be all metallic or
It's
whatever.
in a metal can. I don't know if people know this. There is physically, there's a liner in the can. So the beer is actually never making contact with the metal. It's making contact with the liner that's inside the can. If somebody has, maybe a perceived thing, they're used to drinking out of a can, maybe tasting metallic. Right now, I guarantee you there's absolutely no flavor impact of the beer being in a can.
Unless you have weird procedure going on where your tank's not purged correctly or you're doing stuff, and then regardless of what you're doing on that, you're going to be putting it into a container and it's going to be off because of your procedure before that. I would be like these people that you could put them side by side and I don't think they'd be able to identify which one was out of a bottle or a can, with the train taster.
Well, and that might be, there we go, another episode idea. Like, if we can set up triangle tests or something like that with an identical beer that was packaged in a can versus a bottle, I'm guessing even trained personnel would not be able to do that.
It'd just be like,
to answer the question, it's like, those liners it's pretty advanced technology. So, like I said, the beer's never coming in contact with metal. There are more challenges when it comes to putting beer into cans compared to bottles.
as far as oxygen pickup and all
Correct,
that.
yeah, because obviously, as we all know, glass is a lot more rigid than the aluminum that the can's going into. So you can do pretty cool things when you're bottling, like pre-evacuation. So you literally suck all of the air out of the bottle and it can still hold its form, obviously, because it's glass.
Mm-hmm.
And then purge. And then usually most bottling lines I know of do that twice. So they'll purge, evacuate the bottle, and then do it a second time. That's creating a more, I would say a better...
shelf-stable
A
product.
more
It's
shelf-stable,
gonna be-
better environment for the beer in the bottles. Even the most expensive can lines can't do that. There's a physical limitation with doing that. So there are other challenges, but I don't think those have any impact.
And cans have gotten very popular recently, and
Right.
back in the day, it was like bottles were the way to get the best flavor out of the beer, everybody thought. And I think it was because of some of these machines they were using and the things they were doing. But like I said, nowadays with all the equipment, I don't think you'd be able to discern one from the other if you had it in front of somebody. Your odds would be like, just guessing. The math would work out, like, you could guess. And
Well, especially we've both been to, breweries the big breweries, and these people are tasting all of the beer, and the whole goal is to be able to
make a uniform product that
the product should be uniform across all packaging types and venues.
Exactly.
So whether you get the beer out of a bottle, can, or sitting in a bar somewhere, it needs to taste exactly
they want the
same
McDonald's beer.
every
Where
time.
if I get this beer in Thailand, it's
Yeah.
going to taste like this. If I get a McDonald's in Thailand, I know it tastes like McDonald's.
Yeah, you want that expectation set.
It's already, and they do. Those guys do a great job.
Absolutely.
I would say, like the way, the things they do. Like I said, everyone thinks, oh, that's just cheap crap, and whatever. No. There's a lot of money behind those guys, and they have the best brewers, and to duplicate that process over and over again on the scale that they do it, it's pretty incredible. So I ain't hating. I'm participating. Send me some beer.
What up?
What up, dogs? Any of you guys? We'll review it.
And maybe this next question is also one of those things that's kind of debatable, because I know a lot of beer connoisseurs look to this. We're going to be talking about IBUs. to help make their picks, especially when going to maybe a new brewery that they haven't been to or trying a new beer. So is it something that they should actually be paying attention to?
So IBUs are, especially now with the new hazes and all that, like some of these calculators that we're using, I don't know if they're accurate, and that's just my personal thing, like as far as the way the perceived bittering units would be when I taste the beer. If they're basing it on that.
Well, and the only, ultimately, that measurement was put in place to convey the amount of isomerized alpha acids that are in solution to the consumer, right? And all that means to you is like the isomerized alpha acids are what contribute bitterness.
So our altitude, for instance, when you're talking
Well,
about
there's
that,
a lot of variables that go into that. To answer the question, I think yes, you could probably use that like as a jumping off point or a starting point, but
so like
Troy
100
Litt-
IBU beers. Sorry, excuse me. What?
No, you're good. Like Troy Litt mentioned, like the new hazy IPAs, like you can't equate IBUs to hoppiness, right? So what the New England IPA, hazy IPA, turbid IPA style has done is like embrace total hoppiness, right? Like these beers are super hoppy, but they're not bitter. So the IBUs might be low, and that if you were going to use that as your only
Indicator.
or decision maker, so to speak, would lead you astray.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are a lot of variables, like you mentioned, in the brewing. Like we can estimate, we have no idea. You can actually measure that via
They have
mass
papers
spec.
on. They have papers on the hop utilization and
So do you-
isomerization with altitude and all these different things that we're talking about, and how where we live, you're not going to get the same utilization of those hops at sea level. And you can.
And like I mentioned, you can use UV or visible mass or visible spectrophotometry to actually measure this. But
To really quantify it, yeah.
even if you quantify two beers at 45 IBUs, it's also
Perception can be very
Yeah.
different on each one of them.
there are papers that show that people perceive the same thing very differently.
No, exactly. And then, so some of these guys will be on 120 IBUs,
Right.
whatever. And at that point, also, your thresholds, from what I understand, around 100,
For most people.
And then if you're gonna, they're going so beyond the threshold with certain ones, so like the opposite of the hazy one would be like some of these real old school double IPAs and IPAs that are out on the market. That's their selling point. They're like, hey man, we got 150 million IBU, and it comes with a hop you can chew on.
Yeah. Well, like I said, to answer the question, yes, you can use it as a starting point.
I would just drink what I like, exactly. Go out, taste them, and then you never
Just
know
taste
too if
it.
you're going to get an old batch, a new batch. So you're buying that beer, check the date on the bottom of it. If you're buying an old batch of beer that's real hoppy like that, it's going to be very different than a fresh batch. You'd be really surprised when you taste like an older version of the same beer and see how much oxidation changes these hoppy beers. Like it's drastic, man. Like it's pretty wild.
It's not a factor I would use to guide my decision.
Yeah.
drinking-wise.
So maybe still taste the beer and then you can go from there.
Yeah,
But
and I know
don't
that sucks if
completely
you gotta
write
buy
it
a
off.
$10 six pack to decide, or
Oh, yeah.
build your own six pack kind of thing if you're gonna just be trying something. Because I don't like doing that myself. Going out and spending $10 on a six pack of beer.
Well,
that
and I
really
think-
don't like.
I think a lot of people latched onto that number during
During the 90s.
the 90s, 20 years ago. Really, they did when everyone was using that to basically show how many hops they put into a beer. So
Gotcha.
they would use that as the benchmark of what made a beer hoppy. The entire market's trending away from that now, so I don't think it's as relevant.
Okay. All right, so now we're gonna get into we're gonna close this out with some random questions. First is going to be...
Oh,
Yeah.
man,
Here, look, I brought you guys some lunch.
Hey, look at that.
Hey.
That's all right, man.
Work, huh?
What's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you? Got some pizza.
Oh, look at that.
There we
Look at
go.
that.
Oh.
Enjoy, guys.
That's awesome.
It's all
You have to
Thank
wipe your
you.
hands on your shirt because the napkins are
That's
downstairs.
good.
Jason, how are you?
Thank you.
Thanks,
That's a
Jason.
fine product, man. No, thanks, Don.
Yep,
Thank
absolutely.
you again.
Appreciate you, man. Man, it looks really nice, man.
I don't think this could have been a better segue if we planned it. The question I was going to ask,
Pizza review.
the question is, does pineapple go on pizza?
Yes.
With ham.
Okay.
I actually.
We
I
actually
would-
went to Blue Pan together.
No,
Rick
I
said
will.
he
I will
would prefer that.
qualify. I will qualify my answer. I think yes, it does, but there has to be some sort of spicy ingredient as well.
Interesting. So not the traditional like Hawaiian pizza.
So there's a pizza place in Denver called Blue Pan.
Well,
Um,
there's a pizza place.
Yes, there is a pizza
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
and it has a name that I shouldn't have said, but they're doing different style pizzas. Whatever. I was not familiar with them, and I have family that lives in Michigan. So when
Yeah.
we went there, the fella was like, because Brendan's like, oh, you haven't heard of this? You have friends in Michigan and a family? And I was like, yeah. And then the guy's like, I'm from Michigan. I ain't heard of this. he was working there. So,
But that
we
pizza
did. We got
specifically-
pineapple and ham on that pizza.
Well, no, it wasn't pineapple and ham. It was pineapple, bacon, and jalapenos. So
Ah,
that
well, it was
qualifies
swine.
for my. That
Spicy
qualifies with the
ingredient.
Spicy ingredient that has to go.
And it was delicious. So he's like, normally I don't like pineapple
Take a Corona slice.
on the pie.
All right.
It's like pie.
So I'll get into, we got 2 more questions here, again, not beer related, unless any of our people currently watching have any final questions they want to throw into the comments. I'm going to jump in with, what is your favorite movie?
He's already answered this. I think Pulp Fiction's your
Pulp
answer.
Fiction's my favorite movie. Yes.
Man, so many great movies, man.
There are.
Menace to Society.
Fair enough.
We've been on a Friday kick lately.
Actually, I'll knock that dust off on Friday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Friday.
All right, so last question is, if you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
I'm gonna go to Italy.
For the pizza?
No, just to see some relatives that are still alive that like my parents have visited before, and I've never had the chance to visit. So
Yeah, we.
it's really good family.
I actually had a trip there planned this year, but Corona's
Corona.
dope, and yeah.
Corona's living its best life.
It
You can't
is.
hate on Corona.
We were talking about it earlier. I think Vietnam would be super cool.
Yeah.
It's like,
Philippines,
Yeah.
Vietnam, Thailand, New Zealand. We've got family out there. I'd like to go check that out.
Very cool. All right.
Anywhere. Greeley, Colorado.
here.
It's like so far.
So we actually
Really
just
Colorado.
got one last question commented by James. He wants to know, what qualities do you look for in a brewer's assistant? Wrong answers only.
Well, I like the
Wrong
guy
answers
that
only.
wrong answers only. Oh man. Well, I was gonna say I like a guy to
Okay,
show up to work on time.
No.
We're getting wrong answers only. So I'm like, oh man, I'm going with the
Where do
wrong.
I start? They live their best life.
First off, you got to live your best life.
Yeah.
Second, don't tell me what to do. Right?
Yeah.
Like I'm not here to tell you like what to do or not to live your best life. Just do your own thing, man.
Yeah. I mean, they drink all day. Yeah.
Get angry like that.
Yeah.
Over nothing. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm looking for a dude to flip out, but I'm just like, hey man, I need you to and Hulk out on me, man. I like that.
They vibe.
Vibing. Well, vibing.
As long as they vibe.
Vibing's the right answer, dude.
Yeah.
Vibing is
Wrong
okay, vaping is not.
Well, vaping would go right along with the
I
wrong
was just
answer.
saying, yeah.
That's what
As
I'm-
long as they vibe.
I know cigarette smoking's whatever, you live your life, but cigarette smoking's always solid. Like I'm like, hey man, can you be on my tasting panel after you just smoked that cigarette?
Yep.
I'd like you to see if there's any off flavors in this, and then put that cigarette down just for a second there, buddy. And
Well,
take a
I
sip of this.
hope that when you're tasting, like you're smoking while you're doing it, right? So you have to, yeah.
Yeah, makes more sense to me, man. Have the cig like maybe in your hand or in your mouth. Wait, if you can do that,
Still have the smoke swirling
Yeah,
around
yeah.
while you taste.
as long as it's
Lovely.
like what is it? Natural spirit, right?
Americans.
American
Yeah.
spirit. Yeah, natural spirit. You're looking. My bad.
All right,
Do
so
we have time to do a really quick bonus pizza review?
Sure. Tell us how good Pizzarte's pizza is.
I love fat pie, dude. Fat kid pie, you know, it's solid.
What
Brandon's
kind
is
of
one
pizza
those
do you
that-
have?
It looks like
you
a
did
pepperoni.
yeah, just basic pepperoni pie.
Fantastic. And again, they're here until 7 p.m. tonight.
My only complaint is he didn't bring us napkins.
Well, that's what he said. He said you gotta wipe your hands on your shirt first.
We got some napkins that we can get you in a moment. So, do we happen to know next week what our beer review is going to be? I know we're
Actually-
waiting to see what people would like, correct?
We do have a couple left, but we will take requests.
Just do some requests, and then we go to a different store, man. We'd love to go to different stores and
Yeah.
see what
We want
See
to try
what the
your
selection
beer.
is. Yeah.
Sounds good.
what the selection is. So
Okay.
there's been a lot of liquor stores that have been really good to us lately. So we need to swing by, get some beer, we'll give you a shout out,
Fantastic.
and do something. Or if you guys want to chime in, you can tell us, like, hey man, I would love you to do a Mickey's review. I would love you to do an Old English review. I would love you to do a
Go visit
St.
my
Ides.
no. Go visit my neighborhood liquor store and pick up an OE. You know.
Old English 800, because that's my brand. I drink it in a cold 40 ounce or a can. Anybody? Easy. That's an easy
Easy.
quote.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week, correct? Same time, same day?
Same bat channel.
Drunk janitors.
Junk Janitors. We'll
We're
be on
gonna do a
episode
speech
5
review.
next week.
Ooh, that's crazy.
Cool.
So go ahead and put any comments, questions that you have in the comments, and we'll save them for next week. If we didn't get to yours, we will add those on as well. But yeah, so now the guys are going to enjoy their pizza and finish their niñas, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Have a good one, guys.
Cheers.